Judah was the fourth son of Leah. Leah was the first wife, but not the favorite wife of Jacob of Yaakov, and sort of being somewhere in the middle among the many children, there was no reason to know from the beginning that he would be bound for greatness and royalty. The first inkling that we have of his leadership capabilities came when Joseph was sent by his father to check on the brothers who were with the sheep far off from where the family was camped. And the brothers, as we all know the story, were extremely angry at Joseph for being the favorite son, for having his dreams that indicated he would someday rule over them, and they wanted to murder him. And Judah said, "Ma betza, what's in it for us? What do we gain by simply killing him? If we want to get rid of him, let's sell him into slavery." And they agreed. And though he did ostensibly save Joseph's life, it was sort of like a feeble, a half-successful attempt at saving Joseph. Right immediately after that story, the Torah tells us that Yarad Yehuda me'et achav, he tanked, he fell down precipitously from his brothers, meaning in the eyes of his brothers. His brothers all saw that he had these leadership capabilities, and everyone realized that if he had, instead of saying, "Let's sell him, why don't we just leave him alone and let him go home," they would have agreed to that as well. So though he did have a success of sorts in saving Joseph from being murdered, he really was a momentous failure. And he, as happens to sometimes to people when they have a great failure, they sink deeper and deeper. And he took a wife from one of the local people there in Canaan, and then had this incident where he mistook his daughter-in-law for a temple harlot, a prostitute, and slept with her. And then when it came time to pay, he said, "Well, I'll send you something." And she said, "Well, give me some sureties, some things that I can keep until you pay me." He gave him a staff and some other things. And then she disappeared. And then when the word got out that Tamar was pregnant, Judah was incensed, and given the way things went in those days, and in some societies they still go that way, he said they should just take her out and burn her. And she said, "Okay, but I want you to know that I got pregnant by the person to whom all these things belong, the staff and tassels and whatnot." And here Yehuda had a moment of greatness, and he said, "Tzadka mimeni, she's right, I'm wrong. I was the one who got her pregnant," and that she eventually gave birth, and King David, the Messiah, is descended from one of those children. And from then, Yehuda seems to have gotten back on track. Now he comes into play again after Yosef is in Egypt. The famine is really hard in Eretz Canaan, and we have the episode where the brothers come and Joseph says, "You're spies," and he says, "I'll only go back to Canaan. I'm giving you some food, but don't come back here again without your little brother that you told me about." And then they go back to Canaan and meet Yaakov. So now here Yehuda starts to show signs of maturity, knowing a good leader has got to know not just like what to do, but when to do it. So when they come back and they tell their father Yaakov that this man who's the ruler of Egypt said, "Don't come back again without your little brother," Yaakov says, "Why did you tell him that? Blah, we're in a mess now." So Reuven, the firstborn, who was shown again and again that he's really not worthy of whatever primogeniture brings you in earlier pre-modern societies, says, if I'll vouch for him, and if I don't bring him back, you can kill my two sons. What a stupid thing to say, really. And Yaakov, just dismisses him as he should have. Yehuda knows that this is not the time to speak to Yaakov. A good leader knows when to act, and he knew that if he wants to get his father Yaakov to agree to send Binyamin, the youngest son, the only remaining child of Rachel, he had to ask at the right time, and so he decided he would wait until they ran out of food, and Yaakov and everyone was getting really, really hungry. And then Yaakov would be more willing to listen and to compromise. So when the food began to almost run out, then Yehuda says, and Yaakov says, go back and bring us food. Yehuda says, well, we can't, but I'll vouch for him. He doesn't offer any surety, just his word. If he doesn't come back, you have a case against me. I personally vouch for him. So he showed his great leadership then. And then, when they got back to Egypt and they had the incident, which again the story you all know, with the goblet that Joseph hid in Binyamin's sack, and they're brought back to Joseph accused of thievery. And our parsha, Vayigash, begins, Vayigash elav Yehuda. Yehuda went up to him, and Chazal say that he went up to him without fear and with such confidence that he was ready to draw his weapon and destroy all of Egypt, that Joseph knew that he had met his match. And that's where he really showed the leadership that made him fit to be the progenitor of Beit David and the Jewish royal family. Now, so Yehuda basically displaced Reuben as the first among the children of Leah, but Yosef still had his place as the first of Rachel's children. And the question is, which of these were meant to be the future leader of all of Israel? And here Rabbi Soloveitchik has an interesting insight based on pairing these two figures with sort of Kabbalistic symbols, but really, personality types. Yosef is Chesed. He's the person who is always looking out to help the unfortunate, the underprivileged, to help his fellow human being. Whereas Yehuda has Gevura, which is this courage, this willingness to fight until victory against whatever adversary you meet. And the question is, which of these two character traits, these personality types, the Chesed type or the Gvura type, should be king? And let me just read to you what Rabbi Soloveitchik has to say, because I couldn't phrase it better, and I want you to know that it's what he's saying or what I'm saying. He says, who should be the king? The Almighty decided in favor of the Son, who represented Gevura. The king is a trustee and leader of the people. He must display Gevura in all respects, the ability to acquire, to defend, to possess, and to protect. A life sacrificed for others, a life of chesed, is appropriate for the individual, but the king cannot sacrifice at the expense of the nation. So he's made a very clear, I think, political statement here about the qualities of national leadership, not playing down chesed. Last thing the Rav would do would play down chesed. He talks endlessly about his grandfather, Reb Chaim Brisk, who was ish chesed, but the qualities that needed to be to the leader of the people, the king, it's Gevura. It's the fearless defense of the interests of the people. Thank you very much, and Shabbat Shalom.